From Abbesses to the Sacré-Coeur, from the Canal Saint-Martin to the Gare de l'Est, walking in the footsteps of Amélie means taking a path paved with fantasy, nostalgia, and a hint of magic. It's a rose-tinted Paris, seemingly far from any real Parisians. Amélie Poulain, a shy waitress from Montmartre, appears to be the heroine of a picture postcard world, deciding one day to help humanity and change her destiny forever. Repairing her landlady's broken heart or tracking down a Prince Charming on a scooter are just some of the missions Amélie tackles in secret, spreading happiness and poetry all around her. The characters in Amélie seem to come from a fairy tale, and yet, in the back streets of Paris, we can still meet them, as long as we know where to look. To the north of Paris, a small hill stands out on the skyline. It's the Butte Montmartre. The city of Paris made an inspired decision back in 1860 when it absorbed the village of Montmartre within its boundary. Today, it's one of the biggest tourist attractions in the capital, contributing to its worldwide reputation. Over 10 million visitors throng to its cobbled streets every year. They beat a path to the Sacré-Coeur, climbing the 500 steps leading to the Basilica, and they drink coffee on the terrace of a Parisian institution, the Bistros. The Moulin de la Galette, the Bouillon Chantier, and the Café des Deux Moulins are all names that resonate with people the world over, evoking the spirit of the Parisian bistro. A stone's throw from one of these temples is a bistro which has retained a very special atmosphere. It's La Midinette, run by Stéphane.
It's not far from the Café des Deux Moulins, just up that little street on the right at the foot of Rue Lepic. It's a dead end and quite hard to find, rather off the beaten track. The locals like it because it's quiet. You get hordes of tourists on Rue Lepic. They don't pay any attention to us, but that's no bad thing. I haven't even put the name of my bistro on the sign, so it's very discreet.
Corinne is at the hob. She cooks every day for a clientele consisting mainly of locals. The colourful personalities propping up the bar give this bistro a unique flavour.
Taverne, brasserie, café. I like the term bistro. It's poetic. People feel at home here. That's the atmosphere I was aiming for, the one I found in the 70s when I went into bars and bistros in the provinces. Montmartre is like the countryside, and there's a certain nonchalance. People take things slower here. The city isn't far away, but this is one of its last remaining villages, the village of Montmartre.
Hello, Corinne. Can I still eat?
Yes, no problem.
Great.
You always turn up when it's all over.
Always the last to arrive.
Take a seat.
We have a real character, my friend Sonia. She knows everyone. She has a bag with loads of keys in it. She has all the keys from the butt. She's the keeper of the keys, the caretaker.
I say.
That was completely unacceptable.
I'm not saying a word.
That will make Sonia jealous. Do you want a kiss too?
No, I do not.
Why not?
No way.
Mind that little dog.
I don't want you to crush him.
That's not a dog.
Yes, it is.
Really?
It's a pedigree dog.
A pedigree dog?
A rare breed.
But dogs aren't allowed in bars.
This isn't a bar.
Sonia is much more than a simple caretaker. She is responsible for many varied and indispensable tasks in the neighbourhood.
Is your day nearly done?
Far from it.
Far from it?
9 o'clock.
Enjoy your meal.
I look after 7 people. I've looked after them for 30 years. They're old, over 90 years old. I've become very attached to them. I used to look after children. Now that the parents are old, I look after them. Isn't life funny? It's true. Before it was the children, and now it's their parents I look after when they want to go out. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to go out. Isn't that funny? It's true. There's no time to rest.
Do you want to be here every day?
You have no choice.
I know. You look after so many.
You're hardly going to put pyjamas on all the grannies.
Not the grannies, but the grandpas.
Every day.
I'll help them into their pyjamas.
Who is it? It can't be Granny already. I don't get a moment's peace. It started.
Never a moment's peace.
Never.
You're as busy as the Prime Minister.
Yes? How are you? Are you still in pain? We'll see. The doctor said it would take time. You want anything? Right. Cottage pie, tagliatelle, 3 pears, 2 apples. I'll get the groceries tonight before the shops close. See you later. Wow.
They're edible.
I'm keeping it. I'm not eating the flower.
Why not?
It's a nasturtium. I don't eat flowers or birds. Their bistro is like my second home. They like having me there. Stéphane's a good friend of mine. We have a laugh together. We all know one another, and we all help one another. If I wasn't in Montmartre, I would have gone back to Alsace. I only stay here because I found my home from home. They're like family. It's pretty here. Have you seen... Come here. Quiet. You're not at home now? No. It's wonderful. Really.
For Pascal, Patrick, Jean-Luc and the others, there's only one way to visit this historical city, and that's astride their fabled chargers, or vélo Solex. Created by 2 friends in 1940 during the war, these early motorised bicycles were a resounding success in the 60s. In France, up to 1,500 of them were sold every day, thanks in part to their ambassadress, a certain Brigitte Bardot. Production stopped in 1988, elevating the Solex to the rank of collector's item, and these enthusiasts are keeping the cult alive.
There. It has roller transmission. When you lower the engine, the roller presses on the wheel. As the roller rotates, it pushes the wheel round. It's quite simple.
And when you lift the handle to raise the engine, you can use it as a normal bicycle.
How much does it weigh?
35 kilos. Believe me, 35 kilos here in Montmartre is a good workout.
If the engine is properly tuned, it does 100 kilometers to a litre of fuel. It's very economical.
I've done 958 kilometers since I got it. The odometer has gone back to 0, but it's a Solex from 1962, so it must have done thousands of kilometers. That's all people had to drive back then, so they didn't think twice about going long distances.
The saddest thing is when you hear people say, "I have one in my attic. I don't know what to do with it." It's depressing. We're here ready to take that Solex from the attic and dust down the cobwebs.
To bring it back to life again.
Right.
People threw away a lot less in those days. Now we throw away so much. It bothers me on several levels. First, there's the object, which was built with high-quality workmanship, and which is just thrown out when you no longer need it. Then there's the fact that it could be salvaged. Something could definitely be done with it. It's worth at least taking a look. So there is the environmental side of things, and there is the vintage side of things. But I don't have a problem with that. We are the age we are. We are not geeks.
It was my dream to have Solexes in the room to admire. I've tried to make mine as beautiful as possible. I go into ecstasy at the sight of them. My wife doesn't share my enthusiasm.
Are you sure we don't have the same wife?
No, but there are plenty like her.
Paris is a city which takes a bit of wooing. If you're patient, she will reveal her charms. The maximum speed a Solex can do is around 35 kilometers an hour. For these enthusiasts, that just adds to their charm. Paris has more mainline stations than most cities. There are 7. Every day, Léo, Constance and Claire cross the Gare de l'Est to go to the School of Architecture at La Villette.
Few people realise that the Gare de l'Est was built relatively recently. The building was opened in 1850. It was Napoleon III who decided to create these big Parisian stations. He wanted them to be gateways to Paris. These new gates were intended to replace the gates in the farmers' general wall. The stations were meant to be gateways to the provinces for people coming to work in the capital. They were like palaces for trains for these industrial objects. That's really interesting for us because it makes us question our position as future architects. We mainly study contemporary buildings or less well-known buildings. We would never study the Gare de l'Est at the School of Architecture.
We've never even been there. At least I've never been there with the school.
Or when we do go there, it's for a history lesson rather than to appreciate the aesthetic elements, which could be fascinating.
Thanks to its technical qualities and especially to the space given over to the arts, the Gare de l'Est has long been considered one of the world's most beautiful stations. On the facades, the clocks are topped by sculptures, representing rivers such as the Meuse and the Marne, or the Seine and the Rhine. On the roof of the station sits an allegorical statue of the city of Strasbourg, gazing out over Paris. One fascinating element of its architecture is the extreme modernity of its construction hiding behind its classical facade. Inside, a light framework, revolutionary for its time, meant big spaces could be created without having to resort to load-bearing pillars every 5 meters.
What's interesting about stations is that they create different proportions to the rest of the urban fabric. All these rails coming together at the back of the station create big open spaces which are in stark contrast to the buildings next to them. That's what's so interesting about them. When you come across these open spaces, it's a breath of fresh air compared to the rest of the urban fabric in the centre of Paris, which is actually very linear and uniform in its dimensions. For me, it's like being on the banks of the Seine, or the canals where you get open spaces that haven't necessarily been designed to be there. They are spaces which just happen to be there, and that's like a breath of fresh air.
These rails are like a second river in the heart of Paris, flowing into the rails of the metro. The overhead line which encircles the centre of the city links some of its stations, the Gare Montparnasse, the Gare du Nord and the Gare d'Austerlitz. As for the others, they can be accessed by the underground network, making Paris a veritable mesh of steel. At night, when the Eiffel Tower becomes a lighthouse and the Canal Saint-Martin acts as a mirror to the stars, Paris can sleep. Only a few tourists keep watch over the sleeping city outside Sacré-Coeur. In Pigalle, the night owls have come out to play, the flickering red neon signs promising them a night of debauchery. This shop is getting ready to close. It's going to be a short night for the grocer too, because in a few hours he will have to go in search of goods at the biggest market of fresh produce in the world, Rungis. A real city within a city. In the small hours, restaurateurs and shopkeepers come here to shop. 24,000 professionals come here every day to serve 18 million consumers, making Rungis a market of real national interest. We find Stéphane there. He has come to stock up his restaurant kitchen. You need a pass to get into Rungis market, but wearing a beret, despite being very French, is not obligatory.
I love this. It reminds me of when I was a kid.
The peas are delicious.
I used to shell them at my grandmother's kitchen table.
Really?
Rungis covers 232 hectares, including several pavilions, one of which is dedicated to fish, the Pavillon de la Marée. It is 215 meters long and houses 48 businesses. This is where Stéphane has come to find a rare foodstuff.
Pascal,
All that?
we're not going to put you to work because Corinne wants scallops.
I've heard everyone's looking for those this morning.
In search of the lost scallops. It's Indiana Jones.
I know where there are scallops.
The scallops cost $5.50, but I can sell you these for $4.50. They're half coral.
They're beautiful too, but do you want to open them? Then you need to take the beard off. How much are they this morning?
Reasonable. 36. It depends if I like the look of the customer or not.
Don't you like the look of me then?
Don't talk nonsense.
We'll be back. We're doing the rounds.
Listen, I reckon he's the only one who can sell us some scallops.
They're good.
They don't look bad at all.
Where's the guy who normally serves us?
How much are those Dieppe scallops there?
$31.80.
Blimey, that's very precise.
Hello?
Are those 3 boxes all the scallops you've got left?
Yes.
He won't do us a deal. They've already come down so much.
How much for those?
$31.50 in exchange for a kiss.
There. Here you go, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a
See you
lot.
soon.
Do you know what this is? It's our former President François Mitterrand's favourite crustacean.
Is it a sea squirt?
You might be right.
There.
It's true, it is a sea squirt. Well done.
That's good.
Mitterrand's not the only one who likes them. And do you eat the...
Anything orange and yellow inside. This thing is just as pretty on the inside as it is ugly on the outside. Have you got any lemon to squirt over it?
That's not bad. You have to fight your way inside, but...
It's unusual.
No, it's good.
It's still special. When it's good, you come back for more, right?
The sun hasn't risen yet over Paris. Far from the hurly-burly at Rungis, Sonia is already hard at work, looking after the 4 buildings in her charge. Sonia is the only one working while Paris rests. Here too, in this curious place in the neighborhood of Sèvres-Babylon, time appears to have stood still. This is Maison des Rôles. With its cabinets of curiosities and stuffed animals, it is a sanctuary for collectors and one of the most illustrious places in the capital. Prince Louis Albert de Broglie, who has owned it since 2001, endeavours to retain the spirit of magic.
It's more than just an institution. It's a national treasure created by a family. They started with an interest in catching butterflies and in creating cabinets of curiosities for major sponsors. They then revealed a propensity for observation and discovered that you could be both a lover of nature and interested in dissecting it. That is what made de Rol what it became in the 20th century, a truly exceptional place. When the family moved to 46 Rue du Bac, it became a place where science, art and education all came together. When I bought de Rol, it was on the verge of collapse. There was dust everywhere. You could barely get in the place. It was so full of junk. When I saw it, I thought, 46 Rue du Bac needs to be restored to its former glory. And then I looked at the archives, and that was a real discovery for me. I think it was a discovery for a lot of people. De Rol had links to over 120 countries between 1850 and 1950, distributing educational and scientific material on all the natural sciences: zoology, botany, physics, chemistry, the human body. This was a time when people were leaving the countryside to come to the city. They had to be taught about hygiene and about gas lamps and electricity. The material was educational, and that's when I started thinking that since in the past, de Rol's function had been to explain the world to as many people as possible, in the future it must be to explain how to save the world. These are contemporary issues.
Parisian women may be famous the world over for their sense of style, but it is a lesser-known fact that the walls of the City of Light are also stylishly dressed. Sometimes visible, sometimes hidden, this passion for dressing things up has brought art out of the capital's museums and onto its walls. For Thomas Vailly, that means making them smile again.
This is historic. You can't touch this. There's no room for the cat. Sometimes you want to do it, but you can't.
It was in Orléans in 1997 that the smiling Mr. Cat was born, but it is here in Paris that he has become the most famous of alley cats.
Paris is the city of light. It is the world fair with the Eiffel Tower. It's still a real tourist destination. I've always loved Montmartre, with its historical links to the Impressionists, the Bateau Lavoir, and all those stories. Paris's great strength is that it has retained that artistic spirit. Painting in this international showcase for art is the stuff of dreams. Art helps to change our attitude towards death. It gives us the feeling that we can die and be satisfied because we have had our moment and done what we needed to do during our lifetime. That is also what makes street art so powerful. Anyone can have a go at making life less mundane, thus contributing to the bigger picture in some small way. This creation is a synthesis of work by people who have influenced me, such as Jean-Charles de Castelbajac, André, and Jace. I have borrowed from other artists such as Ernest Pignon or Keith Haring, or any of those people who fascinated me at the start. They got under my skin, and little by little I tried to find my own style, and I ended up with a sort of synthesis. Like a DJ, I created a synthesis of everything I saw around me. And by chance, that synthesis corresponded to a need and filled a gap. Hence it has lasted, and still has its place. What makes an idea transcend individuality? Because that's really the question. I don't know why, but there are certain ideas which transcend individuality. That's what's missing today in our society and in the world. A sort of hope and optimism. I subconsciously leaned towards that, and as luck would have it, hoping for a better world, paid off for me. And my cat is making a life for himself. He is picked up and reinterpreted all the time. He's making his own way in life.
Since the year 2000, in what he calls a network of international optimism, Thomas Vailly has been covering the walls of cities like New York, Tokyo and Hong Kong with his cat's contagious smile. In 2002, he added 2 wings to its back to represent freedom, like a dove. Ever since, the cat has taken flight, and its creator must now share it with others. It has been seen on protest banners for issues as diverse as the CPE, the Front National, and the war in Iraq. Maybe that's what becoming a symbol means. Since all cats are grey at night, Thomas expresses himself in broad daylight.
The need to paint at night was linked to being a teenager. But my teenage days are over. Now, I prefer working by day. And I have found it an even greater challenge to paint in full view of everyone. I mean, when you paint in broad daylight, people can react. There is no thinking, I'll paint in secret and you'll see when the sun comes up. Perhaps it's a form of maturity. The projects are getting bigger and bigger and further away. I went to Hong Kong recently. It's great to be able to paint on buildings. I like to paint everywhere. It's only when you paint in a gallery, when you become famous, when you're invited places, that you start to respond to the demand. To avoid that, you need to go back to basics, back to the original experience by painting in the streets again. Mr. Cat is not ungrateful, but his cat is getting fat.
In the heart of the capital, the 4.5-kilometre-long Canal Saint-Martin links the Canal de l'Ourcq in the northeast of Paris with the Seine. Bonhomme is inspired by these locks every day. He has made a living out of them.
This is the most beautiful lock on the Canal Saint-Martin, the Récollet lock. It dates back to 1825. It's beautiful, like a film set. In 1983, when I arrived here, I discovered this waterway quite by chance, and I thought, I have to work here. I've been here ever since. I've worked here for 30 years. My fondest memories are, well, they're working here every day. There's always something going on. The light changes, the seasons too. The pace of life here is like it is in the countryside. Nearby, life is hectic, but that doesn't affect me. I live in a world apart, a world of silence.
Alain Bonhomme is one of the few people to gain access to this hidden part of the canal. In 1860, to ease the traffic on land, the canal was covered from République to the Port de l'Arsenal at Bastille. The vaults under Boulevard Jules Ferry and Boulevard Richard Lenoir are dotted with ventilation holes, which also allow daylight to penetrate. The canal is regularly maintained. Major maintenance work is done every 15 years, particularly on the locks, whose hydraulic mechanisms and gates get a lot of wear and tear every time a boat passes through. The canal has to be completely emptied. It's a strange sight and reminds Parisians just how attached they are to the canal. Where would they be without it? It nearly came to a tragic end at the start of the 1970s when the Council of Paris wanted to adopt plans for a motorway whose route would have annihilated it. Thankfully, the project was abandoned. Three months later, after collecting 300 tons of rubbish, including 200 bicycles, the canal is refilled. This is the last time Alain Bonhomme will see the canal being filled before he retires. He marks this red letter day by skimming stones. In its heyday at the end of the 19th century, the Canal Saint-Martin carried drinking water, building materials and merchandise to the heart of Paris. As new modes of transport were developed, the slowness of the barges made this activity obsolete. And yet 40 kilometers from Paris on the Canal de l'Ourcq, one woman has chosen this means of locomotion. She regularly transports produce from around 15 farms in the Île-de-France, even in the freezing cold.
We're on the Canal de l'Ourcq. We've just left Clé-Soilly and we're heading for Stalingrad in Paris. We're 37 kilometers away, so it will take 3.5 hours to get there. On the boat, we have lots of vegetables from Seine-et-Marne. There are bunches of turnips. Those are golden balls. There are beetroots and carrots. And then there are apples, the last of the apples. There are radishes, cucumbers, the first cucumbers of the season, lettuces, spinach, anything that grows in the region, really. You don't need to ship things from afar to eat healthily and well. When you're here, you're cut off from the rest of the world. It's a different dimension of time. Perhaps that's what I have in common with Amélie, the dimension of time.
To the rhythm of the water and the seasons, Christelle brings the countryside to Paris. She offers local produce to Parisians, picked or harvested when it's ripe, and then transported a short distance without the need for refrigeration, guaranteeing both the quality and the taste. Back in Montmartre on the Butte, 130 meters above the city. Oscar Comtet lives on this patch of green. At just 27, he runs the family home, which he has lovingly transformed into a hotel. In his garden, his 3 beehives and his hens provide honey and eggs for his guests' breakfasts, and for his family, of course.
This is called the Witches' Rock Passage. Officially, it's the M18, but it is nicknamed the Witches' Rock Passage. It is only known to those who live there, and to locals, of course, who are attached to the history of their butt. There are lots of stories about it. Some of the stories told by locals are quite far-fetched, passed down through the generations and varying according to the street in Montmartre where they originated. The story which seems most plausible to me is that there was a spring underneath here called the Witch's Spring, and the Witch's Spring became distorted to the Witch's Rock. This rock is a complete fabrication. It is a mound of stones stuck together with cement, and there are channels in places, so I think the idea was to create a fountain. I'm not sure exactly. There's no record of it. There were lots of cats who used to come and drink here because of the spring, and there was one area where the water stagnated. It was a strange phenomenon in this setting. Yes, this area is listed. It's a protected green space. It's all that remains of Montmartre's maquis. Historically, these areas were never built on. These were the areas where the likes of Louise Michel went underground, where revolutionaries came to hide. Historically, these green spaces are incredible. What I did was go to the Musée de Montmartre. Jean-Manuel Gabert helped me to do the research. It was very difficult because there was no photograph of the passage, so we went back to the archives and I recreated the space to match the archives. I put in chestnut fences, the same thing with the hens. Back in the day, there were hens and donkeys and horses here. There were donkeys for the wheat, for the mills, and just as it was important to leave the maquis, we didn't want to control nature and bring in species from elsewhere. That's the idea of the maquis for me. There are passageways, and people wonder how you get through them. Well, you duck. You work with nature. You don't try to control it. Yes, there's a group who want to come in. They all want to come in to see the Witch's Rock, so they stand at the gate. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. People want to look. I understand that, so we go along with it. But yes, we're well hidden. A discreet life is a happy life, right?
There are other die-hard locals in Montmartre who still enjoy the subtle pleasures of a discreet life. Nestling in the heart of the butte, enthusiasts play boule in the most hidden spot of all.
You love throwing the balls up in the air. There's no need to do that.
Was it you who swept the pitch this morning?
Yes.
Well done.
What was that?
It wasn't very nice, but it doesn't count anyway. Shoot like a man. Hang on a minute.
The balls are made of steel. There's a jack in front, 20 centimeters in front. You pick up the ball, you wait, and then you swoop. Hang on.
Listen.
It's not just the pitch that's ready. The ball is 4 meters away. He rolled it like in bowling. He says the ball is like a skittle. I have to remove the skittle. There.
Well, that takes skill too.
But it's not aesthetically pleasing. It's not pretty.
We're in Montmartre. This is Avenue Junot.
That's it. When two balls are right next to one another and you eliminate one ball without touching the other, that's satisfying. That's what I did to you earlier.
Oh,
It's true.
Listen
But
to
it's
him.
the truth.
Okay, so you did it once, but apart from that... Good shot.
There. Daddy's here. Daddy's here.
Oh, no, you can't be serious. No.
What?
That's not very sporting.
I'm sorry, but it slipped. It slipped out of my hands.
Yeah.
I've lived in the neighborhood for 15 years.
Is that all?
Well, I lived in the neighborhood when I was a lad. And then, inevitably, I had to leave for work. But it's a neighborhood that I love.
Rue Le Pic is a street rich in history.
Yes, there was a dance hall there. The Moulin de la Galette was a dance hall. It was a sort of... what do you call it?
It was a real ganguette.
A sort of shed.
Right.
And Rue Le Pic was a dirt track.
All right.
We'd walk up this dirt track until we came to this platform, and there was a sort of shed there with an accordion player, and we'd dance.
It was the real thing.
Higher, higher.
Oh, no.
Yes, good, good, good.
Come off it, guys. Who's keeping score?
That's 2 to us.
Well, Oscar's here, isn't he?
Thank goodness he's here.
Damn it. We need to keep a note of the score.
They're hopeless.
That's not very sporting of you. Oh, so it was you
That was
who...
great. And it's over.
That's it, 13.
Thank you, gentlemen. We gave it our best shot.
Well done.
Fair play.
The reason Paris suits Amélie so well is that, like her, the city exudes mystery and wonder. Some of the characters who inhabit it, just like those in the film, have added soul, that certain something which brings a hint of poetry, mischief, and magic to life.